Okay, so welcome everyone. So we will be discussing a bit on the design patterns. So we'll be starting with the creational design pattern. So we'll be taking the singleton one. Now, what is the purpose of singleton class which we are creating? So we can create only single object, and that would be valid for uh, throughout the JVM. Okay, so let's get started with the implementation. So we need in order to have a singleton class, we need to have a static instance. So we are doing the lazy loading. So we are creating the singleton instance and assigning it as a null, and then we will be having a private constructor. So we are keeping the constructor as a private so that we will not be instantiates this singleton reference variable from outside of the class. Okay, so now we'll be creating a get singleton method. Simply returning singleton instance. Okay, so we have created a singleton class. Let's test it. So we have given the name as my singleton. Okay. Let's take an instance one. Let's create another instance. Instance 2. Okay. And now let's try to print the hash code values. We are printing the hash code value to understand like this instance are the same, not two different instances. Okay, so here we can see we have the two instances which having the same hash code. So there are several ways where we can break the singleton. We'll talk about that as well. So in order to break singleton, there are basically three different ways. One is done by reflection, and second is done by serialization, and third is done by while we are implementing the clonable interface. Here ONE, so let's, for instance, we'll take the clone. Okay, so there are these three ways by which we can break the singleton pattern. Okay, so we'll talk about this breaking pattern one by one. So let's and if you want to create a singleton class, a production ready class, so we'll see that how we can create a production ready singleton class at the end. Okay, so first now let's try to break the singleton pattern using reflection, and then we'll start working on how to resolve it. So here we have created a singleton instance, and we are keeping it as a null. And now we are using constructor array, and we are uh, getting the declared constructor. And now we are iterating over it, and we are setting the accessible as a true. And now we are assigning the instance to variable to a new instance. So this is how we would be using the reflection here. So let's try move that code under this tag. Okay, and now try to print the hash code values of these two. Let's see. So there we are getting two different hash code. That means after using the reflection, we have broken the singleton, how initially the singleton should work. We have broken the property of the singleton class. So how we can resolve it? So if we are using the reflection and we want to and we want to make the singleton as to behave as a singleton, we need, instead of using a singleton class, we can create singleton enum. Okay, that is we can prevent the breaking of singleton from reflection. So I have created an enum, and here only will be creating instance. Okay, and now into the main class. So the solution would be use of enum. Similarly, we'll be creating second instance. Give them a different name instead. Let's say 3, 4. And now let's try to print the hash code values of these instances. Let's see if it's still same or different. Okay, so we can see that here we can see the same hash code value. So hence, instead of using singleton class, if we are using reflection anywhere and we want to preserve the singleton behavior, we could have used an enum. So let's talk about another scenario where we are using the serialization. Okay, so it says not serializable, so we haven't used the serializable here. Implements the serializable. Now let's try. So there, when we implement the serializable, here you can see that we have the hash code, different values of hash code, even though we are using the same singleton class. So how we can prevent that? How we can keep the method, how we can keep the singleton behavior? So there is one way we can prevent that. So while we are doing the serialization and deserialization, we have a read resolve method. So the serializable interface had a read resolve method, so we need to override the read resolve. So protected print type would be object, and read resolve is the method we have, and we are returning the same instance here. Yeah, so this, if we are using the serialization and we want to preserve the singleton, then we can override the read resolve method here. Let's see how the behavior changes. So there we go, where we have the same hash code values. So we have preserved the singleton behavior even we are using serialization. So now we'll try to break the singleton pattern using the clone. So we would be creating some new instances to see how it works. So let's say 7 and 8. Instead of getting the new instance, we would be uh, using clone method to clone the instance here. Instance 7 dot clone. So clone would not be visible here until unless we are overriding that into the singleton class, and also we need to throw that exception. Clone not supported exception, and same thing we need to do into the my singleton class. So here we have implemented clonable, and we need to override the clone method. Let's say check clone. It also throws the clone supported exception, and we are returning simple. Return super dot clone. All right. So we have cloned it. Now let's try to print it. Let's see if the singleton, if we have broke the singleton pattern. So there we go. We have two different hash codes. That means we have broken the singleton pattern. So how we can preserve the singleton behavior when we are using the clonable? So there is one approach when we are overriding the clone method. We need to simply return clone not supported exception. We do not need to throw that exception. Let's see. So we are getting the class cut exception that we will not be able to clone it because it is a singleton class. So if we are creating a singleton class, we will not be able to clone the objects. So that is three different ways how we can break the singleton pattern. First is reflection. So if we are using reflection, then instead of using singleton class, we should go with singleton enum. So here the singleton enum. Okay, and if we are using the serialization, and then first we are serializing it and then deserializing it and then storing that object into the instance. So if we are doing that, then we need to override the read resolve method and also implement the serializable interface. And the third way to break the singleton pattern is using the clone method. So if we are cloning the method, so ideal condition that it should not be cloned. So we are implementing the clonable interface here, and while overriding the clone method, we are simply returning clone not supported exception. So it will not be allowed to clone that instance. So yeah, that's it guys. Thank you.